And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this Friday, the 16th of July, a very eventful day because there's lots that's happening out there. Well, it's not Queensland in lockdown, or it's virtually a country in lockdown. All major cities are experiencing lockdown conditions. And in Queensland, of course, our face mask has now been extended for another year. So, we look at all of that, plus looking at some of the functions and events that are going to be taking place, or hopefully taking place over the weekend, because there's a lot that's happening, but it is quite uncertain what's going to be happening. Here's the news that, another week of wearing masks is the right thing to do. So everybody, please keep safe. Message from our Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk, and trying to see if I can connect to the Parliament House and get an update on the live situation there. Yep, we are
all right. Let me know when everyone's right.
All good.
Good to go.
Yes.
Good morning, Queensland. Good morning to all our Facebook Live followers. Hello, how's everyone?
Yes.
Well, today we actually have some good news. So I'm pleased to report that we only have one new locally acquired case, but you can remember the family we spoke about yesterday, the father and the son. Well, this is the mother of the 12-year-old boy that we reported yesterday. Now, it was detected in home quarantine, so there is zero risk to the community. So this is fantastic news. This is exactly the type of news we wanted to hear today. And of course, this was the family that came out of hotel quarantine in Sydney and flew to Queensland. And it has been confirmed that it is that Delta strain, that Sydney strain, that is circulating in Sydney at the moment. So I just think we need to make sure that we are keeping a close eye on this, because what we are seeing is this Delta Sydney strain spreading to Victoria and coming up to Queensland as well. So we will be monitoring everything very closely. But in terms of the situation in Queensland, we are very happy with these results today. Very, very happy, very encouraging. So we have 48 active cases. We've had 13,296 tests in the past 24 hours and 14,270 vaccines by Queensland Health. So in terms of Victoria, of course, Victoria has entered that lockdown period. And once again, can Queenslanders wish Victorians all the very best as they go through that 5-day lockdown. Now, because of that lockdown, and the increase in the cases and restrictions there, we will be declaring, so Queensland will be declaring Victoria a hotspot from 1 a.m. tomorrow. So that's 1 a.m. Saturday, and that means that anyone returning after that time from Queenslanders will have to do the 14 days mandatory quarantine. So this is, I just think that the clear message to Queenslanders is definitely do not go to New South Wales and do not go to Victoria during this period of time. But we do wish everyone the very best, and we know that our Victorians get on top of these issues very quickly. So my final message to everyone is, of course, in Queensland we've got the week of continuing to wear our masks. Make sure you check in. That QR code is helping us to track down people who come into close proximity of others, who might be infectious or close contacts. So it's absolutely vital that you continue to do that. And of course, if you are sick, go and get tested. And I thank the community for absolutely doing that. And we need to keep up that great work. So thank you, Queensland. You're doing a wonderful job. I'm very proud of everyone. And together we'll get through this. So I'll hand over to Dr. Young to go into a few more details. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier. So yes, very good news for Queensland. We just have that one positive case, so all three in that family are now positive. And I would just like to thank that family. They have been so wonderful. They have done everything you could possibly hope of anyone to do. So they were in hotel quarantine in Sydney, and then the mother and her son directly travelled from that hotel to Queensland. Now, we do have the whole genome sequence result from the son, and it's confirmed, very tightly confirmed, with that outbreak that's going on in the community down in Sydney. So the people in Sydney, the health staff there, will be working through how he acquired the infection while he was in hotel quarantine down there. So he's come up here and he had very little exposure out in the community, so we're just tracking through all any contacts he had while he was in the community. Then his father had minimal exposure in the community and his mother virtually none, because she went into hospital with her son when he was admitted. So that's all good. In total, there are 62 contacts that we've found so far, and we're just working with all of those. Then the second outbreak that we have is that worker at the Brisbane International Airport. So she's a supervisor at one of the boarding gates. So we've already gone through CCTV footage and found 23 close contacts, 22 casual contacts, and we expect there'll be others. Those people have been very prompt in getting back to us. We text messaged all those people, and we'll just follow them all up today and make sure we get all their test results and that they're in quarantine. So we just have to work all that through. Now, whole genome sequencing has come back on that worker who works at the Brisbane International Airport. It is 4 SNPs different to the previous worker who works at, remember, worked at the airport and was positive. So that means there hasn't been direct transmission from that previous worker at the airport to this worker at the airport. There's been some other transmission that's occurred at the airport. It is also the Delta strain. So we'll have another look if we can find any other close matches, but at this stage we can't find any close whole genome sequence matches. So I'm quite convinced that we have today in Queensland 2 new outbreaks. They are not related to all of the other outbreaks that we were dealing with. All of those other outbreaks we're coming towards the end of, and I'm very confident about those. We just now need to deal with these 2 new outbreaks, which is why it is really, really important we maintain our restrictions for another 7 days. Wearing masks makes a big difference, we know that. And please, anyone at any of our airports in Queensland, domestic or international, please wear your mask as soon as you arrive at the airport. If not before, when you get onto any public transport, you must, anywhere in Queensland, wear a mask as you go through the airport, because we know it's high risk, time and time again. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of new reports of COVID-19 in Queensland. Unfortunately, Victoria can't say the same thing. The Sydney outbreak has now spread south into regional Victoria and into Melbourne. They are taking appropriate steps in order to deal with that outbreak, and we are today reciprocating those reciprocating those hotspot arrangements. We do hope they get on top of those, and we also welcome the Prime Minister's decision to extend the Sydney compensation arrangements to the rest of the country. They will be now available to Queenslanders should we experience another lockdown.
So to be clear on the changes, from 1 a.m. tomorrow morning, anyone travelling from Victoria into Queensland will need to have a travel declaration and an exemption. It should only be Queensland residents who are flying in, and they will need to go into hotel quarantine for 14 days. Now, those people flying in today will still need their travel declarations, and police will be checking these at the airport. This way we can make sure we're able to contact anyone who we believe has been a close contact in any cases that might come forward. We also want to remind anyone who has been travelling interstate, whether it's New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania, anywhere where there has been recent cases, if you have travelled in these jurisdictions in the last 14 days, including people who are flying in today, please check the website at least once a day to check for exposure sites to see if you've been there and follow the advice in relation to those exposure sites. This is extremely important to keep us all safe, so please be checking those sites. And of course, even though our change only comes in at 1 a.m. tomorrow morning, those people flying in today from Victoria are still bound by the Victorian lockdown, so they shouldn't be flying out of that state unless they're in compliance with the Victorian lockdown directives. So we ask everyone to comply, to do the right thing. Again, the community, wear your masks, social distance, make sure good hygiene, stay home if you are unwell, and please go get tested, just as these most recent cases did. Go get tested if you have any symptoms whatsoever.
So the reminder is there, as the Minister just said, to make sure you are wearing your mask and are compliant with all our restrictions, and for those people coming into our state, understand what is required of you. 42 masks were handed out to our community yesterday. We processed 1,611 vehicles at our borders, and even though a number were turned around, it was disappointing to find that there were two where we had people coming in on false declarations, one being a 79-year-old person who's now in hotel quarantine on the Gold Coast, and disappointingly another vehicle, a limousine, where a driver and 3 passengers have also been placed into quarantine. The 3 passengers are not cooperating at the moment, so further investigations are ongoing, and the driver has been fined $4,135 for a false declaration. At our domestic air borders, 2,102 passengers processed, 11 turned around and 104 into quarantine, and we saw 170 international arrivals yesterday, and we did issue another penalty infringement notice for not wearing a mask after a person was given an opportunity, so a $206 fine. That's a reminder for everyone. You will be given the opportunity. Do the right thing. We need you to do that. Thank you. Out of New South Wales hotspot.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll leave that the live report there, as we've got the major updates out of there. So, if we look at the situation, we are indeed fortunate here in Queensland, and it is the thing. So, yes, thank you, JP Saab. Like the news that we are putting on from here, thank you so much for the encouragement. Well, right now, when we look at all of these things, so, look at in totality that we in Queensland are safe, but, make sure that you still have your mask on. I know lots of functions and events are still taking place, and people go in with their mask, but once they're seated down, they do take that off. Well, right now, let's take a quick look at what is this lockdown looking like for the whole country.
As of midnight tonight, just under half, back of the envelope calculations of just under half of Australia's population, all of Victoria, plus Greater Sydney, including the Blue Mountains, including the Central Coast, and also including Wollongong. That's just under half of Australia's population going into a lockdown because of the 78 locally acquired cases we've seen reported today, 65 in New South Wales. We'll dig into those in a second. 10 in Victoria, plus another 4 that have been reported through the day today that will be officially counted in tomorrow's charts. So we'll put them in the touchscreen tomorrow. But here's what that looks like in Victoria. So all of this from here through to here, that's the last outbreak in Victoria that sparked the last lockdown. This is the one that we're talking about now. So 10 today, 4 tomorrow, for a total of 18 cases in total across 2 separate clusters of virus with 2 separate index cases, both having come across the border from New South Wales. All of those 18 cases currently linked back to a known source. Not to say they all know each other. Some of them are, people who have been in the stands at the MCG, but at least that's believed to be where they caught the virus. So the cluster is contained in terms of epidemiological links. What the government's now doing is, again, another short lockdown. At least we hope it's a short lockdown to, buy some time to give you that insurance policy to, see if there have been any chains of transmission that haven't yet been identified. and if they turn up in the next couple of days and can be got on top of, that's the hope at least. That's why we're seeing this once again.
Okay, now let's go to New South Wales, and the number of cases infectious in the community remains stubbornly high.
Yeah, it does. So the total number of infections today has come down from the last couple of days, 65 cases in total, and a good testing number as well, I should say. So that's down from where we were. What isn't down is this number of cases that were out in the community while infectious, up to 36. That includes some cases where the infectious status of the isolation status of those people is unknown. So up to 36 people who have potentially been out and about in the community. And I should just clarify, sometimes there's a bit of confusion about this term. Just because they were not isolated through their infectious period, it doesn't mean they've necessarily been all over the place. The city is still locked down. It may just be that they've been to the supermarket, they've been to a couple of essential stores. Hopefully that's all that they've been to. But nonetheless, that is the potential of having passed this virus on. So that's a key number we want to see come down to 0. The other thing that we're watching, Kirsten, is the breakdown of these cases across across different parts of Sydney, and we're still seeing most cases occurring in the Fairfield LGA and neighbouring local government areas. This outbreak is still centred on those parts of Sydney. We really want to see those numbers come down before they seed any outbreaks anywhere else in Sydney. Hopefully the surveillance testing of workers who have to leave the area will help with that. I also want to see the number of cases unlinked to a known source, or mystery cases if you like to call them that. They are predominantly occurring in Fairfield as well, and neighbouring LGAs to a lesser extent. We want to see that come down to 0 before you start to see the unknown chains of transmission taking off, because that's what's caused this big spike in Fairfield, is undetected transmission through the community. We've been playing catch-up in Sydney in cases. That's one of the reasons the curve was so steep all of a sudden at the beginning of the week. And if you can get on top of that, bring it back down to 0 before we see other outbreaks, you can nip this wave, if you like, if you want to call it that, in the bud before you get, from the first outbreak in Bondi to the second one in Fairfield, before you get a third one.
So there you are, up to date. Right now, let's go to Victoria, where the Premier is announcing the 5-day lockdown. And when you look at what he has to say, he said, we did not get it, that it has come from New South Wales.
Here we go again.
The Chief Health Officer and the Public Health team have recommended to me and my Cabinet colleagues that we lock Victoria down.
The 5-kilometre radius is back, and there are only 5 reasons to leave your home as Victoria enters its 5th lockdown.
These cases started in New South Wales, but I'm determined that they'll end here, because we will put this out with the help of every single Victorian.
The rules are the same as last month's lockdown. Retail is closed and online learning is back.
If you were authorised to work then, you will be authorised to work now. If you were closed then, you will be closed now.
The strict measures enforced after transmission between strangers at the MCG.
The fact of the matter is that it is moving so fast and it's so infectious.
A man in his 60s who lives at the Ariel Apartments in Maribyrnong is believed to be the source of 3 other infections in the MCC members reserve at the Carlton-Geelong AFL match on Saturday night. They weren't sitting together.
Struck it pretty well. Yeah, loves it. You cannot strike it any better than that.
MCC members have been urged to get tested.
Whatever you're doing at the moment, stop doing it. Please come and get tested so we can get that information and get you safe and secure.
One of those cases is a grade 4 student at St Patrick's Primary School in Murrumbina in Melbourne's southeast. The school was the 3rd to close in the past 24 hours, and all students have been ordered to get tested.
People know in Victoria more than any other part of the country, 5 days of pain is much better than 5 weeks or 5 months.
There are now 18 cases in total linked to the removalists and family from New South Wales. In the past 72 hours, contact tracers have identified more than 70 exposure sites, and 6,500 close contacts are in isolation.
But as fast as they're moving, they're just keeping pace with this virus. They're not getting in front of it.
And Victorians have responded quickly too, with huge lines at testing sites across the state.
Victorian businesses again suffer at the hands of the virus being carried in from another state.
The state opposition says lockdowns should be a last resort, and the government's pulled the trigger early.
We can't keep living like this. We can't keep going into lockdown every time we get 10 or 12 cases in the community.
Masks are once again mandatory indoors and outdoors, and there's a good reason why. One man who spent 5 hours with the removalists who sparked this outbreak was wearing a mask and is yet to catch the virus. His neighbours who weren't wearing masks have tested positive. Bridget Rollison, ABC News, Melbourne.
Jessica Longbottom is at the MCG tonight. Jess, authorities there seem most concerned about those transmissions at that AFL game last weekend.
That's right, Dan. We had...
And when we're looking at the transmission, the tricky part is that you could carry it from someone and pass it on to someone. You could survive because of your health condition, but the person you passed it on to might not survive. And that is scary. So that is the true part, that you could carry it from a person, pass it on to another person. You could survive because of your health conditions, but the other person might not survive. So these are the very scary facts out of that. So that's why those lockdowns have been put in place, and have been put in place straight away. Here we are on the 16th day of July 2021, and still we are looking at lockdowns. And when it all started, it was going to be something that's here. Okay, it is again something which will pass. It has changed the world, changed the way we live, and it is here to stay. So get used to this and start, getting used to the conditions that we might have to live. The new norm, as they mentioned. What would the new normal be moving forward? Well, but one of the things that is for sure is that these closures and the border closures are helping.
Empty streets, shops and offices. The economic fallout of Sydney's lockdown is yet to be known, but it is going to hurt.
The impact will be quite acute.
The latest jobs figures don't cover the economic pain in this city. We'll get those numbers during the next few months. But after stellar data in May, June has continued on the same path. More than 29,000 jobs were added, pushing the unemployment rate down to 4.9%. But there is some devil in the detail. Melbourne's 2-week lockdown during May and June slashed the number of hours worked in Victoria, while underemployment in that state soared to 10%. Those numbers are likely to be a good yardstick for Sydney's lockdown.
Victoria was only locked down for 2 weeks, and Sydney's lockdown will be going for probably around 6 to 8 weeks. So potentially the lockdown impact will be more acute in Sydney.
Sydney accounts for 35% of Australia's GDP. Restricting its workforce will have a national impact.
We've estimated for each week that Sydney is in lockdown, it will cost the national economy around $700 million to $1 billion.
NAB says an 8-week lockdown could wipe $5.6 billion off Australia's economy in the 3 months to September. And with Melbourne now entering a snap lockdown, that hit is going to be even more severe.
We are by no means out of this pandemic. There is still a long way to go to secure our economic recovery.
Before Sydney's lockdown, Ross Nasdale started a new job as a real estate agent. When he ditched his marketing and advertising gig for a career change, he chose to knock on doors to land the role.
It was very targeted. I didn't line up with others and look for jobs that were advertised.
He replaced job applications for coffee with business owners.
It meant that I spoke to the right people rather than just the people that were recruiting for advertised jobs.
The June jobs figures once again show Australia's economic resilience, but it's about to face another test. With Australia's 2 largest cities in lockdown, future data like unemployment, business confidence and GDP could be about to flip. Perhaps the RBA's forecast to keep interest rates on hold for longer wasn't such a stretch.
Well, that is how correct. What a good analysis of the situation there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. Before we finish up, we will have a brief wrap-up of the news that we. But right now, it's time to go to the commercial break and get a message from our sponsors of the segment.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And real estate is the world. Don't forget that every Wednesday we bring to you the real estate update with Usha Chandra right here on this channel. But right now, as we know, Gopia Queensland is once again organized India Day Fair this year after we could not hold it last year. But this year it is in a controlled venue, which is the South Bank Piazza, and because of that reason it's been transferred from Roma Street Parklands to Suncorp Piazza this month, and a date once again is the actual date 15th of August, which will be a wonderful day, a Sunday, a fun-filled day for all family. Here's the Councillor Angela Owen showing her support.
What I'll do.
Hello everyone, I'm Councillor Angela Owen, and it's with great pleasure once again that I throw my support behind India Day Fair to be held this year on the 15th of August at Suncorp Piazza at South Bank in Brisbane. This is for many years, and it is wonderful to know that it is continuing and growing from strength to strength.
And what a wonderful message there from Councillor Angela, because she has always been supporting Gopia Queensland and always has been behind India Day Fair, not have ever missed one in the last 10 years that we have been holding India Day Fair. Well, right now, also there are many people coming to the fair, not only the oldies, the young ones as well. So here's young Asana inviting everyone.
Hello everyone, my name is Ishana Chandra and I would like to invite you to Gopia Queensland's India Day Fair at South Bank Piazza on the 15th of August. A free, fun-filled family event celebrating India's independence, a new venue and bigger, bolder programming. See you all there!
So there you go. She'd like to see you all there, as she mentioned. Well, right now, before we finish off for the today's segment, don't forget that tomorrow we'll have the weekend roundup of all the things that have happened. But today, the 16th day of July 2021, it's quite nice outside, 26 degrees and mostly sunny in Brisbane, with a little bit of cloud out and about. But it is a wonderful day out here. But right now the masks have been extended for another week. Well, here's the news wrap up.
Biggest cities are in COVID lockdown this morning after Victoria introduced snap restrictions at midnight. The 5-day lockdown was recommended by health authorities after 3 people were confirmed to have caught the Delta variant at the MCG last weekend. Meantime, Sydney-siders are completing their 3rd week of lockdown with at least another 2 ahead. The outbreak has spread to a major work site and health settings, and the state is bracing for a bump in case numbers today. Queensland and South Australia are also monitoring COVID cases. Queensland recorded 3 new cases yesterday, and mask rules have been extended for a further week in the southeast. South Australia has reintroduced 50% density limits indoors and masks in high-risk settings. More financial help could be on the way for people affected by COVID lockdowns, with today's National Cabinet being asked to agree on a plan to support businesses and individuals. The Prime Minister's office says he's also reached a deal with Victoria to fund emergency payments for workers affected by the current 5-day restrictions. At least 67 people have died and many more are missing after severe flooding swept through parts of Europe. Dozens have been killed in Western Germany as buildings collapsed and cars were swept away in what local officials have described as a catastrophe. At least 6 people have died in Belgium, with cities and towns littered with debris.
There's bad news coming out of everywhere, those floods in Europe, and earlier in the week we saw the floods in Dharamsala, and of course we saw that lightning strike in Jaipur and all the riots that are taking place in South Africa at this point in time. Our two major cities in lockdown, so it is strange times that we are living in, challenging times that we are living in, but of course as long as we all do our share, our bit of doing the right thing. So doing the right thing, if you're outside, do wear that mask. If you're at a function or event, please do take care and observe those rules, or observe the rules and regulations that have been put in place. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you so much for joining us. It's always so good to see you and having your company on the show. And right now I was saying goodbye until tomorrow, because when we bring to you the weekend roundup. Once again, remain safe and look after yourself and your family.